we're doing something that I think is very much in line with Shady Fox. Shady Fox never stayed still for more than a few minutes at a time, it seemed. So we are having the initial service here on his land. This is his land, and he was very proud of this land, and he wanted very much to contribute and help, and he always has. But one of the things that he wanted to do, and he was finally eventually able to do, was rent his own parcel of land. And so we thought we would honor him by retaining the land and having the actual service itself here. Again, the spillover is on the Silly Cube adjoining. After we have the service, I'm going to say a few words, a couple quotes. We're going to move over to the Heronshire Forest. We will give you the slurl, the landmarks. We've already sent everything in notices. If you looked at that note card, you will see all the landmarks. But we will also help each other, because it's always confusing, to get everyone moved over to Heronshire, where we are going to dedicate a permanent memorial in Shady's honor for him, for all to see at any given time, as long as we remain on the grid. And then afterwards, in the spirit of Shady, we're going to have a massive party afterwards at a third spot over Raglanshire, and we're going to have live musical performances by friends and talented individuals, and we're going to have our cadre of Raglanshire DJs play wonderful music in honor of our friend, and we are going to party, because that's what we do on Raglanshire. And I'm sure if you're not from Raglanshire but you knew Shady, that's what you did with him wherever it is that you were, because that's what Shady brought to well, not brought to the party, but that's what Shady did. I know Shady because 9 years ago, when we first started Raglanshire, it was quickly beaten into my brain how awesome of a DJ Shady Fox was, and the crazy mix of just eclectic and spectacular, strange, odd, funny, popular music that he played at any given time. It blew me away. Anybody can play music and call themselves a DJ. I know this because I do this. All right, but Shady, it just blew me away. The first time, the second time, the third time, and then 9 years later, the 10th millionth time that I heard a set by Shady Fox, it was just the most interesting, fun, bombastic, crazy, insane, awesome music, and I think you can all agree. And that's without him even saying a word, because for many of us who have spoken to Shady on voice or the telephone or whatnot, what a great radio voice. I used to just bug him incessantly to please give you the opportunity, not only like in a second life, to create anything you can think of, but to present yourself any way you want. It is truly a magical thing, a 3D virtual world that gives you the tools to do anything. Or even, I know Shady was very active in a lot of other like Steam-based MMO games. He played with friends, first-person shooters, role-playing MMOs. That's another way where you present the aspect of yourself. It is truthful to who you are, but it's almost like you are a different person, which is why I call it an aspect. So it's very unique to me to see someone that can affect so many others' lives in a world like this. Yeah, so I talked to Shady a couple times, and he knew, and he was sad, but he was so, God, was he overwhelmed. I mean, you see the pictures. You see the pictures, all the plushies and gifts and whatnot that were sent to him at the hospital and at hospice and even before he moved. It was just an unbelievable outpouring of support and love from all of you. And he was overwhelmed by it. And it gave him great comfort, even though he was scared, as any of us would be when you're facing the end. Even though he knew and he had accepted and was scared, that kind of love and support, that has an effect on the soul. And I may not be a religious person, but I do believe, because I don't know, that there absolutely can be something beyond. And I'd like to believe that he is taking that love and support that you all showed him with him into that next level of existence, whatever that may be. And so we're here because we loved him and we knew him. Shady Fox, the first time I met Shady was around this time 9 years ago. April of 2007 is when Raglanshire officially opened, but we'd already been planning it since about this time. And I had been starting to build the Tree City, which will be replaced soon, on Athenshire, which at the time was not even connected. All the Sims were not connected, so it was kind of a secret place. I think only me and a few other folks in Etheria knew about where the build was actually taking place. But somehow Shady Fox found out, and so my introduction to Shady Fox was probably what a lot of you recall maybe on the first times that you had a chance to meet him, was I was working in Second Life on this build, and I was a year, 9 months into Second Life, so it was all relatively new to me. And all of a sudden I looked up, and there was this fox just sitting there, and scared the hell out of me. Scared the hell out of me! I mean, that's what Shady used to do. And he stayed there for all of 30, 45 seconds, then he wandered around, then he was just gone. I turned around, and he was just gone. And that's how I remember Shady. At any given time, the first few years, I would be wherever I was, and he would just appear and just scare the hell out of me. He would have a wry comment, and like a Harpo Marx type character, in the beginning, before he would talk more or chat more, he was very Foley or sound effect oriented, and he would always capture a moment or accent a moment with a sound effect or a gesture. This is even before like we started going nuts with the gestures on Raglan. This is before we invented the name gestures and whatnot. But he would just show up, and it was a Harpo Marx moment. He would appear and then talk a little bit, and then you would look away and he'd just be gone. It was very Batman. It was very shady. It was very shady. It was Shady Fox. And so, at any given time, it's like I started, looking over my shoulder because I started to realize that he could be there at any given time, and he was. And I'm sure a lot of you understand the exact same description of what I'm talking about here, because I know that a lot of you who have your own land, whether it's on Raglan or on other Second Life Sims, and you build or whatnot, and you might be, doing something and arranging your inventory or creating something, and you would look up, and there he was. He would be there, and you talk for a little bit, and then he might say goodbye and leave, or you might just look away, and he would just be gone.
Yes.
That's what I remember about Shady. Later on, as in the first year, as I, and I'm sure all of you in your first, introductions to Shady, as you got to know him, he was not a loud, outspoken, talkative person. He wasn't manic like I am. He wasn't screaming and just saying off-the-cuff things. He was very soft-spoken, and the things he did say were very succinct and to the point, and could be very, very funny and wry. If you ever talked to him on voice, it was very calming and soothing because he had a nice cadence about his voice. And unlike me, he spoke quiet, and he spoke slowly, and he enunciated everything, and it was just nice listening to his voice. I really, really loved his voice. I told him that many times. And of course, the DJs. I'm going to miss the you're listening to Radio Raglan, which talk during your sets because you have such an incredibly awesome voice. It was deep and soothing and calming, and it was a wonderful voice. He was blessed with that voice. He never talked much during his sets, and his sets were still spectacularly crazy awesome. So he was quite a character, and it's so sad to see something like this happen. Again, I think we are all reminded that, as long as our lives are, ultimately, what it comes down to is that the truth of our reality is death and taxes. And this is, yet again, a reminder that our lives are finite. And, it's one thing to lose somebody, which is always just sad and tragic. And we've talked about the void and the vacuum that you can never fill. It is impossible to say goodbye to somebody. But, thankfully, we never forget them, and we will always remember. It really is impossible to say goodbye to someone. But with Shady, it's even harder because the way that he went was so fast, and it's so sad. I'm sure all of us have seen people that have passed away quickly, but when you come up against it direct like this, it hurts. And I know there's a lot of you out there that knew him, and you're hurting, and with good reason. I think he was diagnosed the end of September, beginning of October, and then we just lost him last week. It went so fast, and it's not fair, but nothing is fair in the world, which is another universal truth, unfortunately. But a couple things, in fact, a lot of things have been going through my head about this. I did have the opportunity to speak to him in hospice on the phone twice. Once when Karma was there, and another time when I spoke to him briefly. Virtual worlds, online, realities, games, MMOs. Most people don't understand these. You talk to folks that don't spend a lot of time online, and they don't get it at all. And it's hard to explain exactly, when you say to somebody, did a friend of mine pass? Oh, how did you know him? Oh, I knew him from an online world. And then they look at you like, what are you talking about? And I understand that, as I'm sure you do. The crazy thing is, it's like most of us, 99.9% of us here, have never met each other in real life, and we never will. Yet, we know each other. We may not know the real people, but we definitely know an aspect of each of us. This really isn't about... we've done this several times now over the last several years where our friends have passed on and we've had to say goodbye to them. Daisy Blue and Still Pink and Fox Aviat and Nin, and there's so many, and this is not the first time we've done this. I feel like we do this once or twice a year now. It is the worst reason for a gathering like this, but unfortunately it is a necessary one. But 99% of the time, we never meet the actual folks in person. We never get a chance to look them in the face, in the eyes, see their body language, hear their voice. And yet, again, we get to know an aspect of an individual. Shady kind of provided backbone and undertone in groups of people. And if he was playing the music for a party or a gathering, that undertone became the focal point that would set the tone for that energy level that everyone in the room or on the parcel or wherever you were in the skybox, it would set that tone. And he always said it so perfect, because what we hear on Raglanshire, what I envision and what I think we have pretty much captured, is a manic energy where we log in to escape the status quo of the real world, which half the time is just full of ridiculousness and superficiality, or is full of people who are in pain themselves, who are ill, who might be isolated due to their where they live physically in the world, other issues that prevent them from interacting with folks on a normal basis in the real world. He would set a tone, and people could come in here and go nuts on Raglanshire, and Shady understood that, because Shady had that type of mindset that I have and that many of you have. And so Shady, was a natural fit, and he just kind of appeared one day and has been with us for 9 years and been a big part of our community. It's funny, everyone looks at Raglanshire as a tiny only community, and it is. I mean, we have definitely tons of small avatars. That's what we're known for. But from the get-go, as I've been repeating over the last year, we have always made ourselves open and available to anyone that just wants to have fun, make friends, interact, collaborate, corroborate, And, Shady wasn't a small avatar, but he was as loved as anyone is going to be here on Raglanshire, as I imagine he is as loved as anyone can be across the grids, other worlds, whatnot. Ultimately, the personality that he presented himself online was wonderful. He was a fun person to be around. And again, while it's impossible to truly say goodbye and to try and fill that vacuum, we can't. There will always be that hurt and there will always be that pain. They say time heals all wounds. It's not so much heals, but over time you just kind of get used to that numbness that vacuum is giving off. You just get used to it. None of us ever truly die as long as someone remembers us and can tell someone else about us.